Welcome to the Glass Development Kit sneak peek. Come on, this is cool. So, hi, I'm Timothy Jordan. I'll be your developer advocate for the next, I don't know, forever. You can reach me online at google.com/+TimothyJordan because the conversation doesn't need to end here. Also check out developers.google.com/glass/community. You can find links to our Stack Overflow tag, our issue tracker, and we can continue hanging out even when we're not in a room because the internet is really that cool. We've got a lot to talk about today. Just a handful of things that we need to do are up on the board here. We're going to talk about the Glass platform. We're going to talk about the components, the building blocks of glassware. We're going to spend a little bit of time asking the question, what is the GDK? But it's not that existential. It's very clear and straightforward. And then we're going to look at some development paradigms or patterns for glass. Does it sound like fun? Yeah. All right, so let's jump into it. First off, I wanted to say a note about glass. And glass is this really cool thing, as we all know in this room, that gives us access to the technology that we love without getting in the way. And that's very cool. But what's even cooler is that it's a way to build services for users that they can use in a natural and everyday way in their lives. And we knew this was awesome when we started building the hardware and software at Google. We knew it was going to be even cooler when you built the things that we knew you were going to build on this platform. But even more exciting is the stuff that we couldn't even have imagined that you've started to build and you're yet to build now that you have access to the GDK that really reaches these users in their everyday lives in a way you could never do before Glass was available. And that's the Glass platform. You've been building on it using the Google Mirror API, which is a RESTful web-based API. And those services that you've built, there's only a handful of them that are available online. And even though it's early days, 83% of Glass users have at least one of those third-party Glass services installed, which is a huge number for just a handful that are available to them. Now again, the Mirror API is what you built these on, and it's a cloud-based API that allows you to insert timeline cards, respond to user notifications, and do sharing from Glass. You can do a lot with the Mirror API, but you've been asking for more, and we knew we needed to give you more. And that's why we built the GDK. And we talked about this at Google I/O, this last Google I/O. And we've been building it since, and we're going to tell you all the details about it today. There are three major things here that you can do on Glass now that you couldn't do before. The first one is offline. You can now build code that runs on Glass so the user can use it whether or not they're connected to the internet. And you can also get real-time, immediate user response. Right? So this is a glassware that's installed on Glass and the user can interact with, and there doesn't need to do a round trip to your service in the cloud to be able to respond to a user request. And then finally, deeper access to hardware, such as the accelerometer and the GPS. Now, these three things are cool. Trust me, they're very cool. And we're going to get into detail about how these are implemented in the GDK. But before we get there, I want to show you. Should we do a demo right away? Yeah. OK. So this is WordLens on Glass. And I don't know if you've had this happen to you, but I've had it quite a few times where I'm in a foreign country and there's a sign like this, and it's like, that guy looks like he's having so much fun, I want to do that. But maybe I should read the sign first, do you think? And so typically what I'll do is I'll have like a travel book, right? And I'll flip through and try and translate. Or if I happen to have a SIM in my phone for that country, I'll bring up Google Translate, and I'm trying to enter in the foreign characters. But on Glass, as you'll see, it's a way cooler experience. OK, Glass, translate this. I'm just going to look at the sign, and through Glass, I'm going to see the translation. Which is pretty cool, huh? Thank you, Lisa. And I now know that I'm not going to jump off that cliff because I might plummet to my death. That would be bad. So these demos, I'm going to show you quite a few more of them. Remember, it's a cooler experience on glass when you actually try it on glass, and everybody in this room will have a chance to try all of these demos a little bit later. But I want to sort of show them to you in the context of explaining the GDK. So please, bear with me, even though it's a little bit more choppy and rezzed up on the screen. Now, WordLens does each of those three things that you can now do with the GDK. It does offline processing. All that translation is happening directly on glass without any internet communication. You can switch languages. Right? I could translate from Spanish to English, English to Portuguese, quite a few languages on WordLens, and I can do all of that and switch all of those languages immediately on glass. And then last but not least is this accessing the camera and doing that overlay and translation directly on glass, accessing that hardware directly. Pretty cool, huh? OK, so let's talk about the building blocks of what makes glassware. And these are our glassware components. And there's sort of three areas that I'd like to talk about. First are types. What kind of glassware that you might want to build. Invocation. And this is how you start the glassware. And elements, sort of the primary UI components that are presented to the user. So with types, and you'll see all these lists there, they're very simple and straightforward, like development on glass. There's the GDK, which we're introducing today, and you're going to learn all about in the next however long this takes. The Mirror API, and this is what you've already been doing with the cloud-based API. And a GDK plus Mirror. You can, in fact, use both of these in a dance together for a single user experience. Now, for invocation, typically users are going to start glassware via the OK Glass menu. This is a top-level voice menu that can trigger your glassware either via the Mirror API or the GDK. Menu item on a timeline card. So you can interact with a glassware and even start up a GDK glassware from a menu item on a timeline card. And timeline cards themselves, which are inserted from the Mirror API. And then there's these elements. And let's actually dive deeper into these elements. This is kind of what they look like. The first one, live card. This is something that you couldn't do on glass with the Mirror API, but you can now do with the GDK. Now, this is something that gives developers the ability to draw directly into the glass timeline in real time. And the reason I chose that particular example is that this is a stopwatch running on glass with millisecond updates on glass. So you can actually see that stopwatch count up, and you can scroll through glass to other parts of your timeline, scroll back, and that card is still updating. Static cards, which you already know from the Mirror API. This is a moment in time that you insert in the user's glass timeline as a timestamp, and they can interact with that card via the menu items. Immersions. This is another new thing with the GDK today. This is a focused user experience where the rest of the glass UX kind of fades away, and they're focused on just doing that task. You saw that with WordLens a moment ago, and I'll give you more examples. And then background services. Now, background services are web services or GDK services that every once in a while show up with timeline cards or live cards or immersions. Now, let's look at an actual flow here. This is a live card flow, which you would typically start with an OK Glass voice command. It'll start up a glassware service. Now, this is an Android service that creates the live card and inserts it into the glass timeline. Now, live cards appear to the left of home, right? Your home is your clock, and to the right is everything that's sort of fading into the past on your timeline, your history, if you will. And to the left is everything that's happening right now or is about to happen. That includes live cards. Static cards are inserted into the glass timeline, and they appear to the right of home, as you'd expect, and as you already know from using the Mirror API. Now, immersions, you start with a voice command, and they take over the glass user experience. Unlike live cards, where if you swipe forward, you go to the next card in the timeline, immersions, if you swipe forward, that's captured by that experience and may be used by that glassware. So those gestures can be used as part of the user experience. And then finally, services. And again, these are background services. Most Mirror API glassware are services. Right? Something that's running on the cloud constantly and every once in a while throws a timeline card your way. you can also run GDK glassware as a service, and it will show up maybe with a live card or perhaps an immersion when it's important to the user for it to do so. Okay, so those are our building blocks, and I'm going to describe each of these a little bit more later when we get into the demos, more demos. But first, let's take a step back and say, well, what is this GDK thing? The GDK is super straightforward and simple. We worked really hard to make sure that if you're an Android developer, developing for Glass would feel natural. It uses the same paradigms that you're already used to. So we built the GDK with standard Android APIs compiled for Glass so that when you use those Android APIs on Glass, it gives you the experience that it should on Glass. And I'll describe some of those in detail in a moment. For features specific to Glass, we have a simple add-on that you add into your already standard Android development environment and gives you access to those specific features, things like the live card or the voice invocation commands. All right, so let's look at both those lists in a bit more detail. The platform features are things like the location provider. Now, those of you that have experienced directions on Glass, you know that you need Glass tethered with your Android phone because Glass uses the GPS from the phone. Now, this complexity is completely abstracted away when you're building with the GDK. You use the normal location provider like you would on any other Android device, and the location will just work when the user has that Android phone tethered. The camera attent also works like it should on an Android device, but it'll use the Glass camera. The recognizer intent will start up the Glass-specific speech-to-text UX. And then the options menu, it's just an options menu like you would have on Android, only on Glass, it will render a Glass-specific menu. Now, the add-on features, these are new things, right? And you use the add-on to get these. It's a voice trigger, which allows you to insert commands into the OK Glass menu. Gesture detection, so as you're moving around on the touchpad, you can capture those gestures. Cards and card scroller, which will allow you to build timeline cards and arrange them on a mini timeline in your glassware so the users can scroll through them like a Glass timeline. And then live cards. Live cards are that way that you can draw directly into the Glass timeline. And with all these features, you can build the same level of glassware that's already built into some of the system glassware, such as directions. But we also think that you're going to build a lot of new and interesting stuff. Now, when users install these glassware, they go to My Glass like normal, and they hit that on button. And an APK is downloaded to their Glass device. And it'll look like this to the user. They'll see that card, they hit that on switch, and then on Glass, they see a live card to the left of home saying activating this glassware. In this case, the example is WordLens. And as soon as the entire APK is downloaded, that card moves into the timeline, and it says activated. Really simple flow for users. For glassware that needs authentication in an account, and this will be released soon. We're still hammering out a few details, but it'll come out when there's the full developer preview. The user goes through the normal install flow, but they're also given a pop-up window to your web page where they sign in, and then you JSON encode an Android account manager account, send that to a Google API, and then Google will send that to the user's Glass. So when they run the glassware on Glass, the account manager is already populated with that account. Now, the GDK has all these features, and we're adding more all the time. What's going to be released is a sneak peek. Next up is the developer preview, where we'll get things like auth and even more features, hopefully based on a lot of your feedback. Okay, now I want to give you some really solid use cases and examples of great glassware. And I'd like to do so sort of in the perspective of these development patterns. There's about 4 that we see developers using to build glassware. And the first 2 you're already doing with the Mirror API. One of these is periodic notifications. You have a service in the cloud, and every once in a while you want to tell the user something. So you send them a timeline card. Another one is sharing. The user has an image on Glass, and they want to share it out to a Google+ circle, and they just share that, again, with a Mirror API glassware. The ones that I'm going to dive deeper into are the GDK patterns that you can do now, but you couldn't do with Glass before the GDK was available. One of those is ongoing tasks. The user is doing something, and they want to frequently look back at that ongoing task, either for information or interact. And the other one is immersion. Now, immersion is when the user has a focused task. They want to sort of stop what they're doing, focus on this task for a little while, and then when they exit back, they're back at their normal Glass experience. For ongoing tasks, what I'd like to show you, and for all these partners, they've done an incredible job of testing this API and finding our bugs and really getting it ready for you to play with. But they also have really cool glassware. Glassware that I've enjoyed using every day and we think you're going to love too. One of those is Strava. Now, Strava is a great service built for athletes that helps you track your runs and your rides. I don't know about you, but I use Strava every time I'm on my bike, but I do find it kind of annoying and difficult to get my phone out of whatever pocket I've decided to stash it in. And when I'm riding, I still want the benefits of Strava, and I want to get that coaching, and I want to see that data, but I want to keep my hands on the handlebars and keep focused on my path and the experience of riding my bike. That's why I'm out there. With Strava on Glass, you just speak to start tracking. You just look up to see the information that matters to you, and you can see your personal records relative to your best times, all by just looking up. Shall we take a look at this? Okay. So I'm spoofing location on a tablet here so that it thinks that I'm out there riding my bike. It works pretty well. We'll see how it looks. Okay, Glass, start a bike ride. And there I am. Ooh, I'm going fast. That's great. I don't usually go around. The wind must be at my back. So the great thing about this is a couple things. Is like all I did was say, okay, Glass, start a bike ride, and it started. There were no settings. There were no things to navigate. I wasn't looking for the app on my, it happened for me. And that's the Glass experience. Also, Glass went to standby, but if I want, I just look up, and there's all my Strava information. It's pretty cool, right? And if let's say if I tap, you can see that I can go through my segment history. Those of you who use Strava every day, they have these cool segments. And one of the things that I like to do is if I know where the segment is, I ride faster because that's the thing that gets recorded and I can share with my friends. Typically, I just sort of have to know where that segment is. Well, with Strava on Glass, it tells me as I just start the segment, about halfway through and near the end as well, so that I'm really charging as fast as I can so I can get that good time. And then as I pass through the segments, it will load up segment history with what I've passed. And as the segment's ongoing, it'll create an additional live card, like this one right here. That was good timing. So this is Hawk Hill, which is a great climb in San Francisco. I have not done it in 6 minutes, but maybe today I will when I have pretend GPS. Now I can look at this and it's giving me my, my progress on this segment. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the Strava experience here. I'm going to tap and hit finish. And it saved the ride and it's uploaded to Strava and I can share it with my friends later. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so I just showed you the demo. I want to now look at the flow, just on a static page here, and describe some of the platform features that Strava is using to make this happen. So the voice command is invoked by the user, and then this live card is created. Now, you'll notice that Strava looks like a glassware. It looks like the rest of the Glass experience. It's consistent and it's familiar to the user, and that's because theming is built into the SDK. So all of those sort of minor implementation details around colors and fonts, you just get that for free with the GDK. Also, they're using live cards to draw directly into the timeline, which means that time is ticking as you would expect. I can zoom around that timeline, I can zoom out, and that live card is still going. It's directly rendering into my timeline. And then Strava is also using authentication. To start this up, I used the flow that I mentioned before, where I clicked on, I signed into my Strava account. That account got sent down to Glass, and then Strava just used it, using the normal Android account manager. All right, let me show you another one. And this is, I'm going to need some more GPS spoofing for this. This is Golf Site by SkyDroid. Golf is another one of those things that I like to do where I do not want technology in the way, but I still want the benefits of it. For example, when I'm choosing my club, I want to know kind of how far I am to the green. And that changes, as you know, because you hit and then you're in the fairway, or in my case, you're usually off to the right. And I'm not sure how far I am to the green. But with Golf Site, I'll always know how far I am, both to the front, middle, and the back of the green, the hazards that are on the course, and all of that just by looking up. You want to see it? OK, let me just go ahead and say, OK, Glass, start a round of golf. So it's going to find nearby golf courses, and SkyDroid is so great. Even though I'm spoofing my GPS and it's not working well, I can just select the park that I want, which is Golden Gate Park golf course. And it's going to load it up. And there I am. There we are, 149 yards to the hole. And you'll notice this hole is a par 3, which is my skill level. Probably still hit a 5. And if I want, I can just tap on this card and maybe swipe over the hazards and targets. I know there's a bunker just to the right of the green. And all this information I get while I'm on the course without breaking my stride. And it's never in the way when I don't want it to be. Once I get to that green, and with a little bit of wishful thinking, let's say birdie, shall we? Let's pretend it can be whatever I want. And now I'm on to the second hole. Super simple. But everything that I otherwise would have been like ruffling in my bag or like, nah, maybe in the middle of the fairway, it knows because it has access to my location and it's giving me that information exactly when I need it. Let's go ahead and end this round. And we're done. OK, so that's Golf Site. Again, let me take a moment to talk about the GDK features that Golf Site by SkyDroid is using. There's voice invocation, and then I select the course. And it lands on this page, where I've got an options menu. Now, this options menu is your Android options menu, but when it's rendered on glass, it's the glass menu. And that's that second row there. Also, they are using the live card, like Strava, and the location provider. So they're accessing GPS all throughout my game to know exactly where I am. And they're doing this like normal on Android with the location provider. OK, so let's talk about this next pattern, which is immersion. Right? And this is really new for Glass. It's when the user wants to have a focused task in front of them, where the rest of the UI kind of fades away. And a great example of this is gameplay. Now, new form factors always open up incredible possibilities for gameplay. And our friends at Glue built this really cool game, Spellista. And one of my favorite things about this is the natural interface. It allows me to play this game completely hands-free. Shall we take a look? OK. OK, Glass, play a game. I love how simple that is. And here we are in Spellista. It's a word jumble game, and I'm playing the level Under the Sea, and I'm terrible at it, but Jeff in the front row is really good. What is this?
Turtles.
Oh, he's so good. So turtles. Is it L-E or E-L?
Ellie.
So turtles. Yay, I win. That's so cool. Crabs? OK. You guys don't mind if I just play this for a little while, do you? That is fun. So super simple and easy, and I love playing this just about any time during my day, because it's always right there whenever I want it. Now, another cool thing about this game is they built this really cool... that was dolphins, I know. They built this really cool feature that lets me build my own levels, and I can share them with my friends. And Leon built this Red Sox Nation, go figure, level that I can play. And she actually took a picture on glass and then spoke some words aloud And that just created the level. And she could send it to me, again, from Glass, which is a really cool way to stay in touch with your friends and family when you're far away. Awesome. This is, somebody said New York, and I don't think it is. I wonder what the next word is. So again, very simple and intuitive, and the interface is just delightful. The way the scene moves around as I look around, and it's really glanceable and still feels very glass-like. All right. So let's look at some of the tools from the GDK that Glue used to build Spalista. So it's the voice invocation like before, only this voice invocation then creates an Android activity. That Android activity is the immersion. It's just your normal Android activity, but on Glass, it creates that immersion. And then Spalista is using a couple really cool things here. You notice that first row, these are sort of rich imagery that represents the levels. They're using the cards class to build those cards, and they're using the card scroller class to make this feel like a natural Glass timeline. They're also using the gyroscope, and they're using the gyroscope like normal, like you would on any other Android device, except now it's me moving my head in this natural way. Okay, another immersion example is WordLens. Now, I've already showed you the demo, so let me just give you the details. WordLens has this really cool real-time translation overlay, right? But on Glass, I think you saw, it's really what makes it come alive. All I need to do is look at the text I want translated, and through Glass, I see it translated into my natural language. And I think the cool thing that I want to mention about WordLens is once I invoke it, it immediately uses the camera and accesses that camera feed directly. Does some optical character recognition using the NDK on Glass, like you would on any other Android device. Computes the translation and overlays that on the video and shows that back to me. They're also using the gyroscope so that whenever it knows I'm looking at something, that's when it starts translating it. So again, it uses these features of the GDK that are really straightforward, Android paradigms, but now makes it a Glass-specific natural experience. All right, one more demo. Yeah. One more demo. All the Cooks. Now, All the Cooks is a social cooking app for Android and iPhone, and it is really cool. I found with using All the Cooks, I'm cooking more because recipes are there, but also I'm doing something that I never did before because of All the Cooks on Glass. I'm actually taking pictures and recording notes on my recipes and sending them to my friends. And I never did this before because it was always kind of in the way. You know, you just kind of get the camera and then like the notepad. I'm like, I need a better shot, and then it's burnt. Right? It's just sort of like an awkward experience. But cooking, you really need your hands, and that's where Glass really shines in this case. Okay, Glass. Find a recipe. Oops. Okay, Glass. Find a recipe. Avocado. I did the old cover the microphone trick for... There we are, for the live demo. That works great the first time. So All the Cooks is now searching for avocado recipes on the internet, and I get some really cool pictures here. I'm going to scroll over back and choose avocado relish, and here's my recipe. I can swipe forward and back through like these recipe steps, and again, I can follow this step hands-free, and if ever like I forget how many avocados or onions, I just look up, and there's my ingredients list. It's really nice, it's simple, it's intuitive, it's that natural user interface you'd expect on Glass. And I don't know about you, but usually when I'm cooking, it takes a long time because I've got to try things 2 or 3 times before I get it right. And with All the Cooks on Glass, they also insert a live card, so I can get back to that experience easily on my Glass timeline whenever I want. Okay, so let's take a look at this again and the GDK implementation details that they use to make this experience happen. So all the cooks is using cards and card scroller. When it created those recipes and they were bundles and you tapped into them and you were able to drill down, all that is building with the cards class and using the card scroller to keep that natural timeline interface that you expect on Glass. They're also using the recognizer intent. Now this, again, is the recognizer intent from Android, but on Glass, when you run it, gives you the Glass-specific speech-to-text interface. Okay, so those patterns were periodic notifications and sharing, which you already do on the Mirror API. And the new ones that are possible today with the GDK are ongoing task and immersion. Now, all of these partners that we've been working with, again, they've done a great job of helping us test the platform, but also I've really loved using these glassware on Glass day in and day out, and we think that you will too. All of these will be available on My Glass later today. And we have a couple more simple glassware that we're throwing on there. The compass and the stopwatch, both GDK glassware that we built and open source, and they're going to be available on the documentation for you to learn how to use the GDK even quicker. And the Mirror API has been going strong, and more people have been submitting their glassware for review, and 3 more just got available, and we're going to be launching today as well. Umano, which allows you to get trendy news articles on Glass, read to you by professional voice actors, so you can get your news while still on the go. Jewish Guide for Glass. Let's say you're traveling in a local place and you need some kosher food. You can set a reminder on Jewish Guide, and it will come up at lunchtime with all the kosher restaurants nearby. And If This Then That. If This Then That has a ton of cool recipes that you can use now with Glass. Say, for example, you're looking for an apartment in San Francisco. You can use If This Then That to get notified as soon as a new listing is posted on Craigslist. So all this stuff is going to be available later today on My Glass. And it joins a lot of the glassware that's already up there. It's just a handful of glassware that we have on My Glass because we're just getting started. And even so, we've been delighted and surprised by the cool new things that people want to do with Glass. But today, now that the GDK is available more than ever, we're excited to see what you will do next. Both the things that we know you're going to do with this that are great use cases on Glass, and the things that we haven't even thought of yet. Because one thing we know about our Explorer community is you guys dream really big. And we can't wait to see how you make those dreams tangible with the Glass Development Kit. Let's take a quick look at the walkthrough, just so you know how easy it is to get started with the Glass Development Kit. So again, I keep saying this is Android development that you're used to. Let's go ahead and load up Eclipse with ADT. Now this is pretty much fresh install on my computer here. And remember, there was the part of the GDK that's built into the platform on Glass, using normal Android platform APIs, but they'll just work on Glass the way they should. And then there's the add-on library that gives you deeper access to the Glass-specific features. Well, you need to get that add-on library before you start building on the GDK. And it's available through the SDK Manager. Now, I've already gone ahead and installed it. It's this item right here. You look under API level 15, and you'll see Glass Development Kit Sneak Peek. You click on that, install the package, read the license, and accept the terms, and then come back to your Eclipse interface. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new sample project from the add-on. So I'm just going to go to File, New, Other, and I'm going to choose Android Sample Project, and select the Glass Development Kit. Let's try the stopwatch. Okay, so I've got the stopwatch here, and I'm going to choose, I don't know, let's just run it. See what happens. I'm going to choose my Glass device, and click OK. Now, I might have another stopwatch APK here, but it just compiled it, and now it's installing it, and it's done. Cool. So let's take a look at my Glass device. OK Glass. Start a stopwatch. And there it is. From installing Eclipse to on Glass in, what was that, a minute? 2 minutes? That's the GDK. OK, so the GDK and the documentation are right now a sneak peek. That means the full developer preview is coming later. But we still wanted to give it to you guys to get your hands on it so that you could test it, find some bugs, and also find the stuff that's missing that you really want to really be able to make great glassware. So we're making it available as the sneak peek later today, and you'll find the instructions for getting the add-on and all the documentation at developers.google.com/glass. Now, we are just getting started, and we do want that feedback. We want to build this platform with you. So please just add a /community on the end of that URL, and you'll come to links for our Stack Overflow tag, as well as our issue tracker. We really want to hear from you about how we can make this platform great. And then finally, Android development. This is all, the GDK is built on the Android platform, so you'll also want to take a look at that documentation to get started. And again, what's really going to happen next is you get to build glassware using the Mirror API, and now with all these new features that are available to you through the GDK that really open up these magical experiences that let you build glassware that fit into people's lives in a natural way. A lot of the stuff that you saw today wasn't available on Glass before the GDK. Right? You just couldn't do that kind of user experience. But a lot of those demos also, you may have noticed, weren't possible before Glass. There's something about this form factor that really opens up a new realm of possibilities for building great user experiences and solving real user problems. And we can't wait to see you do just that with the GDK. Thank you so much.